with me because my slides is in my computer.
Sure.
So I'm just talk from my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So Pramod, could you tell me when it's about 9:45 because
Sure.
I don't have a watch with me.
Yes, I'll do that. Yes.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So Pramod, do you want to start or shall I start or how would you?
Yes. Yes. So I'll make it really quick. So good morning, all once again. Welcome to the Mindful Monday session. Apologies about the delay in starting and the technical glitch. So far we have spoken about parenting as well as managing relationships. And linking to that, today we are going to talk about authenticity, which is also a very crucial element of almost everything we do in life. Our special guest today is also Professor Priyanjali D'Souza. Welcome, Professor, and thank you for joining the session today. Over to you.
Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. And my computer just crashed for the first time in my life. So, okay. So, so I'm going to talk to you about something that's really close to my heart, and I think it's so important for all of us to consider, which is on authenticity. So in Sinhala, we call it avyajabhava, and it's a term and a concept that is hardly spoken about in Sri Lanka, and I think it's still being talked about. Some of the newer concepts that are being talked about in the world of psychology, but it's so important. Now, you might remember that when I spoke about skillful parenting, I spoke about emotional intelligence in the context of children. But I did say that this emotional intelligence, which is an indicator of mental well being and mental health, is not limited to children, but it's also to do with all of us, really. That we all need to have this skill, qualities, which we refer to as emotional intelligence. But authenticity is actually how do you say, it's the practice of who we are, and it is where you actually resonate. I think that's a word, resonate with yourself. So when you say authenticity, I think if I already want to say something, it's about, are you actually the person you are? So many people say that they feel disconnected from who they are, and some people don't even know who they are. You know, like for example, say we might go into an event, we might go to a party, we might go to a religious function, we might go to a funeral. And sometimes we see people who are, their eyes are flitting around and they seem to try to connect to people and talk to people, but they seem a little bit like disconnected. When we talk to these people, we feel that they are disconnected because while they're talking to us, their minds seem to be all over. And it's not only the lack of mindfulness, they just don't seem to be able to connect with us. You may be one of those people who really can't connect with yourself. And there's a bit of a like a not quite sure who you are. Another aspect of inauthenticity is where you don't really have a sense of what you stand for, what your values are, what your likes and dislikes are. Of course, all these values and likes and dislikes that we have, which is us, which makes you, of course, changes across the years. So, for example, I might value greatly higher education when I was in my 20s, but I might not really value it so greatly. A person might value money greatly in their 20s and 30s, but they may not really value it so much in 60s and 70s because their values have changed. But whatever those values are at a given moment in time, at a given age, are you aware of it, or are you a person who changes? If somebody says, yeah, it's fantastic to have the two-story house, and all these years you've been fine with the one-story house, and then somebody comes along and suddenly you change your mind. So you kind of flit. There's no stability. Authenticity, on the other hand, is somebody who really knows who they are, what their values are at a given moment, what their weaknesses and strengths are at a given moment, and it's a true representation of that when they deal and when they connect with others. So it's a person who really knows themselves. They know, for example, I do not like it when somebody is unjust. I'm a person who would stand, I'm not referring to myself, I mean, I might be referring to myself, but basically, you know what I mean? It's just that you stand for the values that you hold. There is no disconnect between the values that you hold and what you represent. So, for example, some person might say, I'm extremely happy in my family, I'm extremely happy in my life, I'm doing what I like, but actually, they are not happy in their life. And it's like, in a way, in Sinhalese, we say, api prodaven jeevat වෙනවා. So, as a person grows in inauthenticity, the disparity between what they have within themselves and what they show to the world, show to the others is, is broadening. And sometimes it's so broad that even they don't know that they're inauthentic, but they're actually inauthentic. So, why is it so important to be authentic? Well, the main reason is that you start liking yourself because there is no there's you know who you are and you're comfortable in your skin, as opposed to somebody whose mind keeps changing from the company they're keeping or the social media program they're watching. Because we do know that social media or other forms of mass media or the society at large tells us what we should be. And many of us just borrow these ideas and they live that life, not really knowing, is this what I want? So, for example, say, if you were a person who was interested in a minimalist lifestyle, you are interested in a life just very simple with a few things in your house, not excessively with these ornaments and chandeliers. There's nothing wrong with ornaments and chandeliers. If somebody has a fancy for them, certainly go ahead with it. But if you are somebody who are not into that kind of a lifestyle, if you appreciated more the simple things and very bare basics, which we call a minimalist lifestyle, but then social media promotes a maximalist lifestyle where you keep buying things, very consumerist. And or maybe somebody else tells you, I buy this, I go shopping every Friday and Saturday, and then suddenly you change and you're going against your deeper sense of values. And when you do that, you feel very disconnected with yourself, which has repercussions for your mental health. You see? So that's the biggest thing about the lack of authenticity is that you do not feel comfortable in your own skin. You feel as if you're really disconnected. So authenticity, on the other hand, is somebody who really knows their values, what their needs are, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they represent that when they go out into the world. So they speak the truth. And when you speak the truth, people know who you are. And people don't get disappointed when over the long years you turn out to be somebody whom you're not. Not that you've turned out to be somebody whom you have not been. You just show your actual self after many months and many years because you can't keep up this pretense of flitting of the mind. Because sometimes we find people who initially they're really fun and they seem to be having the same values and ideas that we have and we connect with them, but after some time we see they're quite moody, they're quite grumpy, and that's perfectly fine to be moody and grumpy if they do feel that way. But initially it's so different to what they projected themselves and we feel disappointed with them. But when you're authentic, you show to the others, you show to the world who you actually are, and then the correct people who should be with you get attracted to you like a magnet. And those whom you try to attract by showing a part of you that is actually not you gets repelled. It may be sad to repel them, but in the long run, it is easier because otherwise it's so difficult to keep up the pretense of showing somebody whom you're not, and it can lead to a lot of mental health consequences. Another benefit of being authentic is that you take responsibility for your weaknesses and your mistakes. Now, that's absolutely essential because many of us who has a blame game, so many people, when things don't go right in their life, they are in the habit of blaming their parents, blaming the government, blaming the spouse, blaming the child, and of course, all these other people around us or the systems around us do have an input and could have an input into our life, but a large majority of how our life turns out to be is a reflection of our own mind, and how we have been and how what we carry within ourselves. When we are authentic, we know how we may have contributed to a particular problem or challenge that has just arisen in your life. Maybe it's a workplace issue, maybe it's an issue in your neighborhood, maybe it's an issue in a platonic or intimate relationship that has arisen. And the more authentic you are, you're able to kind of go back and think, well, you know what? Yes, that person could have spoken nicely to me, this, but I also contributed to this. I also contributed to what how the situation came up to be. And when you are so open about it, it's so easier, it's so much more easier to rectify the problem. And people trust you because they know you come out openly in order to solve the problem. So the third quality or the benefit of being authentic is that you fully own your mistakes, your contributions to life problems and issues, and therefore you are open to solving it with others because you're so open. And people like working with you and being with you because they know you're not doing the blame game. Now you might think, so does it mean that being authentic means that you just say as you say, you do as you do, you just be as you be. So, for example, if you are authentic, does it mean that if you just love to wear jeans and t-shirt, that you just say, stuff it, whatever meeting there is, I'm just going to wear my jeans and t-shirt with everybody's with me full suit or formal? No. Authenticity also means, so if you are very authentic and very connected with yourself and know who you are able to also value other people's desires and interests, you see. So if you are invited to a formal function and if you are authentic self, but your true interest is really to wear jeans and a t-shirt and a pair of sandals and go there, yes, it resonates with you, but in a larger context, because you know for other people to be very discomforting and therefore discomforting to you would adopt the requirements of the larger context you're in. So authenticity doesn't mean doing as you want, saying what you want, and just being you, even if it's harmful to others. Now, that's a wrong concept, isn't it? Now, people push this concept of human rights beyond what it should be because they would say, well, this is what I want. And at the risk, for example, whether it's complying with the lockdown regulations or whether it's wearing masks or keeping the physical distancing when a pandemic comes up a little bit too much in a particular period of time, there are people who would go on riots that they would not, because they say, well, my authentic self does not want to wear a mask. I do not want to take vaccines. I do not want to keep physical distancing. So I am what I am, and you better accept it. Now, an authentic person wouldn't be somebody who would behave like that. They would realize, yes, I would like these things, but I'd also live in a larger society where I need to respect and balance the norm as well. So, therefore, authenticity then is where a person is very aware of their needs and wants, they know who they are, and then they practice that in their behavior towards life and others while respecting the rights and the needs of other people in their life. Now, many of us are in a scale of authenticity. Very few people are truly authentic. How would you know if somebody is authentic? I think it's about, when you're with somebody, sometimes we say that person is so genuine. They're just, they are there. They are the person there, and there's no pretense. There are people who sometimes, on the other hand, when they walk to a room, it's as if they've just swallowed a bicycle handle or something. They're so egoistical and so disconnected. You can feel it. They might talk the big talk, they might give great speeches, but you know that there is some kind of a disconnect within themselves. So therefore, authenticity is extremely valuable, and I think it is a cornerstone of mental health. Now, why is it that most people are inauthentic? And one of the biggest reasons is because in childhood, in order for us to be accepted, loved, and merge in with our family and with the wider society that we were in, we really had to peg back who we really are and then adopt to what others wanted us to be. So we call it our adoptive self. In a way, it's a false self because that's what the society wanted, you know. So there may be a little girl who loves to be like a tomboy, you know what we call tomboy, would love to climb trees and would like to wear shorts and play with, um, with boy toys. But that whenever she does that, her parents frown on her or her grandparents frown on her. The society says, well, that's what girls do. So this child keeps a part of her hidden and acts as if she's a girl because her true expression is not encouraged in her milieu. And then she learns that in order for me to be accepted and encouraged into the society or the friend circle I want to be, I might need to show a part of me which is actually not me. Because if I show the actual part of me, they're not going to accept me. So then we include into our personality what the media tells us to do, our friends tell us to do, our parents tell us to do, the wider society tells us to do, what our culture tells us to do. And we have all these things that we've included in ourselves which we don't resonate with. But we have it in us and we practice that because we want to be accepted. So that's what we call adaptive self. To some extent, the adaptive self is useful because we keep the status quo. Like, for example, the very simple example I gave you about somebody who wants to wear jeans and t-shirts and a sandal. It's not encouraged if you want to go for a formal function because it's going to hurt other people. So a certain amount of adaptation is required to run the society. But if you are at the hands of what the world says, what the people says, what everybody else says, and you totally disregarded what is in you, what is truly you, there's going to be a huge disconnect and a huge amount of disappointment and sadness in your own life. So it's a balance of your authentic self and your adaptive self that will make you thrive in the society you're in. So finally, I'm going to talk to you. The remaining part of my talk is about how to be authentic, how to be more authentic. All of us are authentic at certain extents. With certain people, we may be more authentic with our close friends than our work colleagues. We may be more authentic in our families than in the neighborhood. So there are also variations in the context. But whatever it is, we want to be more me. I want to be more Pianjali. Pramod wants to be more Pramod. That way you feel, good and relaxed about yourself. So I'm going to talk to you now until we finish about how to be more authentic and the tips. I just want to check with you about the time. What's the time like?
We have about 20 more minutes.
Okay. Could you tell me when it's about 5 minutes into it?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, the first and the key strategy of being authentic is to be mindful. Now, Pramod tells me that you all had a whole like a session on mindfulness and living in the present moment, and that may be why you've also have this thing called Mindful Monday, right? About acknowledging the importance of this particular technique. But I want to remind you about what mindfulness is, and mindfulness is where it's a practice of being in the present moment. It's an ancient spiritual practice that was largely practiced in spiritual settings, but over the last 20, 30 years, and increasingly now, has been incorporated into modern psychology as an extremely valuable tool for improving our mental well-being. So if I were to remind you, mindfulness is keeping your mind on the activity that you're doing at the given time. So you're at the webinar, you're connected to the webinar, and you're listening to a webinar on authenticity and improving yourself. That is your current activity at present. If you're mindful, you would keep your mind on my voice and what is happening here, but you will realize that your mind wanders like hundreds of times away from the activity. It might go to what kind of cup of tea would I have? Should I have a plain tea? Shall I have a plain tea with ginger? Shall I have milk tea without sugar, milk tea with sugar, a Nesta malt tea? Shall I have a black coffee? Should it be a local coffee? All these proliferations. Our mind goes beyond what is happening. A mindful person gently, the key word is gently, not forcibly, gently brings back the mind to the activity they are doing. So, for example, if you're cutting carrots, that's a famous example, cutting carrots for lunch, most of us would cut carrot whilst planning the meeting that you have to do at 2 p.m. or at 3, 4 p.m. Or you will be cutting carrots, scolding your child for not doing the homework. Or you'll be cutting carrots, reminiscing about what it was like when you were 10 years and playing with friends in the neighborhood. So particularly for mundane activities like washing our hair, washing the toilet, washing the dog, even talking to a friend, whilst we seem to be doing what we are doing, we actually keep our mind on other things. That is extremely unmindful, it's extremely unproductive, it's extremely restless giving, and it's not good for your mental health. A person who's mindful, on the other hand, their minds too will go away from the activity they're doing, but the difference is the moment they realize their mind has wandered to something that is not happening now, they bring it back to the present. Now, when you're mindful, it breeds authenticity. Because when you are in the present moment, you know exactly who you are. When you, for example, if you're very much in the present moment and you go to a university or an office function and you are practicing, you're very much mindful, you're a practitioner of mindfulness, yes, your mind wanders, but you bring it back, then within you, you will see, well, I'm actually talking with that senior officer in my company because not because I want to talk to that person, because I want to curry favor with that person. That is inauthentic, isn't it? Because you're not genuinely connecting with somebody. You're doing it because of a false reason. Now, a mindful person would see these workings of their mind, the darker side of their mind. And when you see these dark workings of your mind, you are able to quickly fix it and connect genuinely with the person whom you weren't connected genuinely just a few seconds ago. So therefore, when you're mindful, what happens is that it's like holding a very megawatt torch into your mind. You see the cobwebs, the dirt, the little snakes, the little worms, the little slimes, and all the inauthentic ways that you're relating to the world and the other people. And when you see that, they'll be there in all of us, some more in others, more so in others than another bunch. Whatever, we all have it. And when we see it, we can disregard our old pattern of the way we have been living and instead genuinely connect with others authentically, which means we are putting new footprints into our mind's habits and being more authentic. That's the first strategy, being mindful. The second strategy of being mindful is to question how do you say, the ideas and thoughts and the conditionings that your family has given you, you know. I mean, I remember when I was much younger, some of my relatives, when I went to their house, the domestics, persons who were in their family, had to watch TV from outside of a window. But they could easily have sat, and watched it. Why would the domestic, this is of course many, many years ago, Why would they have to be hanging on to a window grill and watch TV from outside? And then there was another family I remember, all the domestics had little bunk to sit, not proper chairs. Now, those are handed down generational practices. There can be also generational thought patterns. These are just practices, but thought patterns about, oh, our family is better. Girls should behave like this. Boys should be like this. People in our family should get married at this age. They should have so many children. They should have so much of wealth coming. Now, all those have been handed down to us, and we, without questioning it, have brought it and become ourselves. Question those. Is it actually necessary that people should behave the way the people say the society should? Are there more beautiful ways, more better ways, more productive ways, more effective ways to live? And it is because people like you and I question this. It's because you and I moved into our authenticity that the world has changed so much. From even women being able to vote, women coming into a top managerial position, which was not there, unheard of even 50 years ago in certain countries, even including ours. So authenticity's second strategy, first was mindfulness, the most important, is to question some of the beliefs that you so dearly hold. Are they actually reflecting you? Or are they just handed over to you from generation to generation, from your family, from your society, from your culture, which you have now included in yourself, but which is not serving you, which doesn't resonate with you? Okay. The third strategy of being authentic is to keep a good check on their friend circle. Now, I think you may remember, I don't know whether it's with, okay, when I spoke about supportive relationships last week with you all, I said one of the greatest indicators of mental health is long term, deep, meaningful relationships. And that's perfectly fine. However, sometimes we stay in relationships which are long term but are toxic, which doesn't add to you, which just dampens you. And these friends might be feeding you their values which do not resonate with you anymore. I think I told you in my last speak, I was many years ago, I was in a little gathering with a group of friends, and one of the friends made very condescending remarks about a worker who was in that area where we were having a cup of coffee. And one of my friends, that didn't resonate with her, the second friend, and she said, well, why do you want to say like that about people? They're also trying to make a living. They may be different to us socioeconomically, but they haven't done anything wrong to us. So why do we want to make disparaging remarks at these people? Good on her. So like that, sometimes we might be still stuck in a friend circle or a community circle that just doesn't resonate with us. And we are trying to fly away with better values, more open-minded views, more encompassing views, and they just drag you down to their little, it's like crabs. There's a type of crabs called hermit crabs, where when one crab tries to remove itself away from the ball that they're trapped in, all the other hermit crabs brings a crab back down and says, stay with us, be like us, be doomed like us. So therefore, question your friend circle. Are they actually are they resonating with you now, or have you outgrown them? That doesn't mean that you have to summarily dump them and not talk to them and block them and avoid them and not go to any of their functions. Certainly, go to their functions, be kind to them, but don't be limited to them. Question what they say, especially if what they say doesn't resonate with you anymore and you feel a sense of discomfort within yourself. That comes to the final strategy of being authentic is to really listen to your gut feeling, which we call intuition, which we are all blessed with. Some of us have it more than others. It's like when we are at a particular meeting, say, and you are like a assistant manager, and the manager is making disparaging, harassing remarks at a younger employee. And in your mind and heart, in your gut, intuitively, you know it's wrong, it's not the right thing to do, it's very disempowering. If you were mindful, you would be tuning to your intuitions about this even more than other times. When you feel this way, when your intuition tells you what is happening is not correct, you're given two choices. Are you going to just shut your mouth and wait because you don't want to cheese off the manager because you also need to be in his good books? Or are you being authentic, respectful to the manager, but also protective of the young employee and try to kind of diffuse the situation? Maybe deviate from the topic at hand if you don't feel strong enough to be on the side of the victim. Do something to kind of diffuse the situation. And in order to do like that, in order to act authentically, you need to trust your gut, your intuition, which tells you what is right and what is wrong, what goes beyond your value system, what goes with your value system. In order to listen to your intuition before you start acting on it, you need to really listen to it. And how do you listen to it? If you become mindful, if you become aware of the workings of your mind and the functioning of your mind, which tells you what is right and wrong and what resonates with you and what resonates to. And then you keep acting. Pramod, how are we for time? Pramod, how are we for time?
We have about 7 minutes more. Professor,
Oh,
I think we are good. Yeah.
so I want to like kind of summarize what we spoke about because I know this might be a kind of a new area of mental health and well-being that you've been exposed to. I just want to summarize what we spoke about. We spoke about authenticity. Authenticity being your true self. In order to be your true self, you have to know who this true self is. I need to know who Pianjali really is, not a bunch of things my parents told me, my family told me, my culture told me, what my education told me. But who is she? What are her views? What are her values? What are her weaknesses? What are her strengths? What does she believe in? What empowers you? That's authenticity. Once you know that, then you start behaving and speaking accordingly. When you behave and speak accordingly, you become very relaxed because there's no pretense. And pretense is terrible. People know who you are, and the right people too will come into your life because they like you for who you are, not a pretense. You also accept your weaknesses and the mistakes you made, and you don't get into what we call the blame game. You take responsibility for your life and the mistakes made, and you become really the best version of yourself, isn't it? The most authentic. But we also spoke that we become inauthentic because when we're young, we had to adapt. And sometimes we need to keep some of these adaptations because we also have to respect the rights and wishes of others. Then finally, we spoke about strategies to be authentic, which is mindfulness. Please revisit the talk that you had with somebody else on that. Practice it. Secondly, reconsider the thoughts and belief systems that you were handed down by your family. Are they resonating with you, vibrating with you? Reconsider what your friends have told you that you should be or the world should be. And finally, listen to your intuition, what goes beyond logical thinking, and practice and act on it. And that way you become the most authentic person that you possibly could be. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. Yeah, you finished right on time. Um, since it's a little tight for time today, we will not take on questions unless you channel in few for later on, and we'll pick it up
Yes,
next week. And
yes.
Professor, thank you once again for joining the session today. So next session will be on anger management.
Yeah.
So we will meet you next Monday on that session. So until then, have a great week, all of you. And Professor, we'll see you next week. Thank you all for joining. Have a great week. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.